Happy Halloween, friends!
Happy Halloween!
I'm Shannon.
I'm Alyssa.
Welcome back to another episode of B Movie Bash. B Movie Bash. Ooh, we got effects in here.
I was trying to go a little Halloween-y. Like,
oh, I like it. Right. So you're the killer now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of.
Cool.
When would I not be the killer? We
That's
all
true.
know if I had superhero powers, I would be a villain. So.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
I not exactly an anti-hero. I'm pretty sure I would be a villain.
Just a straight up
villain. I mean,
Maleficent,
I would go.
this bitch. Be
Oh,
like,
I
you
would-
didn't invite me to your baby shower.
Yeah.
Here's what I'm gonna do.
First of all, I do great baby shower gifts. Even if I don't like your babies, I do great gifts, okay? I like you, and I will eventually love your children.
True.
So,
anyway, so about this movie.
yeah, about the movie.
Okay, getting back.
So we are watching, or I'm telling you about The Hollow.
Yes.
2004's The Hollow, because there are a million movies called The Hollow.
Oh, yeah.
Like, a lot. Just in the last couple of years, there's been like 6.
Yeah.
So, like, there's a lot. So we're talking about 2004, The Hollow TV movie, okay?
Oh.
Which I originally watched this movie on ABC Family, okay?
Okay.
IMDb says that it's rated R.
Oh.
And I'm like,
Maybe it was after they switched to freeform.
maybe.
They're like, we're edgy now.
I don't know. Yeah, it's an hour and 23 minutes if you want to count 6 of those minutes as the opening credits.
Oh.
Like,
Okay.
yeah. I could not find it anywhere to watch except for the Holy Grail. I find it on YouTube.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Some random person, thank you random person, uploaded it to YouTube. And it's really, really, really bad quality, but
Yeah.
it's fine.
That's what it is.
Yes. So it starts Kevin Zegers.
Yep.
Yep.
Your guess
He's
is as good as
from
mine.
Gossip Girl, Fear the Walking Dead, Dawn of the Dead, a few other things, which is really funny because if you see his face, you'd be like, oh, him.
Oh, that guy.
That guy. But like,
But when you say Kevin Zegers,
yeah, you're like, I don't know who the fuck that is. It also stars Kaylee
Cuoco?
Cuoco? Yeah,
Oh,
okay.
I love her.
Yes, she's in it. Which she's from The Big Bang Theory, if people don't know.
Yep.
Nick Carter from
Hello.
the Backstreet Boys.
If you don't know who Nick Carter is, you can get off our podcast
Absolutely,
right now.
you
Just
can.
kidding.
You're-
Don't leave. Please don't leave.
But you're far too young. Or possibly a Kevin or Brian fan, but that's okay because I stan Kevin too, so that's fine.
Yes.
It's also got Stacy Keach from Prison Break and my favorite, Judge Reinhold, who plays Neil in The Santa Claus. He's the other
therapist
the
dad.
therapist dad.
Oh.
And
his name is Judge.
His name is Judge.
That man's name is Judge.
Yep.
All right.
So the most like you look at him and you think you are the beta male therapist.
You
and,
are
like,
Neil.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you are a Neil. You know, no offense to all the Neils out there, but you are a Neil. You
he
know,
is that Neil.
he is that Neil. Yeah.
Yes.
And in this movie, he's supposed to be the big bad. Sorry, everyone. He's supposed to be the big tough football coach, and I look at him and I'm like, "Have you ever even played? Do
you know
football?
what football
Yeah,
is?
like you don't know what football is. Like, not saying that he probably did in high school, but like he does not look like he ever played football.
No.
Yeah. Anyway, I mean he's fit, but like
That man played the saxophone.
Yeah.
Like, come on.
Yep. Anyway, so we start off with these stupid long credits, okay? I had time to put my toast in, to make chocolate milk, to put peanut butter on my toast, to take the laptop over to the couch, okay? To get all set up and cozy with my blanket, and I was still done before the credits were done.
Wow.
Yes, but as I'm watching the credits, they're kind of cool-ish credits, so like, but they're just so long. But they're showing like flashes of old-timey kind of book drawings, like the printed, and obviously it's showing the Legend of Sleepy Hollow kind of pictures, and we finally pan over a shot of the grass while Stacy Keach, who I don't know if you know who he is.
That's a he.
Yeah, it's a guy.
Okay.
He has like the most memorable voice.
Is he
like
the Prison Break guy?
No,
Oh,
he's
okay.
the warden from Prison
Oh,
Break.
yeah, no. I haven't watched it. I just know
but-
what he looks like.
The Prison Break guy.
Yeah.
He's also on a few episodes of Law and Order SVU.
Of course he
So,
is. Who
yeah.
is not? Everyone is.
Everyone is.
I've been on an episode of Law and Order
Yeah.
SVU. Okay?
I'm sorry if you have.
I was the dead one in the back. Yeah, I was on episode 277. So, look it up. That's a lie. if you didn't know.
But so we hear Stacy Keach narrating that this is a ghost story, but it's different from others because this is a true ghost story. Ooh. And he knows it's a true ghost story because he's in it.
Because I lived it.
Yes.
Okay.
And we see
Is
him
he the ghost?
He's not.
Oh, damn it.
And we see him pan up to a tombstone, okay, that I don't know the significance of this tombstone. I'm wondering, okay, if this whole movie is under the assumption that we know the Sleepy Hollow story frontwards and back. Okay.
Okay.
Because there's so many things that they like leave out that I'm like, I feel like I knew that when I watched the cartoon when I was younger, but like it's been, I can't tell you how long since I've watched that. Like,
give me the story.
Give me the story. And they give you the story, but they don't give you the story. It's just, anyway. So he walks up to this tombstone and these really thick, thorny vines are growing up around it. But all the tombstone says is Washington Irving. And I don't know who that is.
I think that's who wrote the story.
Maybe?
I'm going to find out. Yeah, he is the writer. He did that and like a bunch of other short stories like Rip Van Winkle and stuff. Says the internet.
Okay then. So
it's just kind of like a sneaky like
I guess that makes sense. But like it's the only one that thorns are growing around. And so you're like, okay, that's fine then.
Creepy creep.
Anyway, so that's the only like tombstone they show is that one, okay? Mm-hmm. And his name is Klaus. He's the gravekeeper, okay? And I call him the gravekeeper in some of my notes, and then I remember that his name was Klaus. So the rest of the notes are him saying Klaus. So he yells and swings his axe down at it, and then the scene changes, okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Why?
So next we see a group of people sitting outside of a house. Whose house? I don't know. But it's a house with a bunch of chairs set up outside. And a young boy, Ian, he's our main character, is telling the story. He's dressed in all old-timey clothes, and he's telling the story of Ichabod Crane, okay? We don't get to hear much of the story of Ichabod Crane, except for the very end, because, relevance to the movie, I guess. I really would have liked to hear the whole... I mean, I know the premise. Ichabod Crane goes to a party, and then goes to go walk home through a graveyard, and that's when the Headless Horseman chases him and stuff, right? Yeah. That's the story.
And there's, like, a girl, and...
Yeah.
All I picture is, like, the old Disney Ichabod Crane with the nose and the... Yeah. It's, like, right Goofy in a person's body.
Right?
Yeah.
Which, it has come to my attention, according to TikTok. Oh. Some people think that Goofy is a cow.
It's probably because of Clarabelle.
Clarabelle, yeah. But they're like, dog. They're like, no, he's a cow. And I'm like, no, he is not a cow. And they're like, yeah, he is. And like, so this guy did this whole big thing about how he's like, no, he's not. They say multiple times that he is a dog.
Yeah.
And stuff. And they're like, no, they don't. And I'm like, yeah, they fucking do. Have you seen any of the movies?
Yeah.
Like, anyway.
Well, and then like in the Goofy movie, like basically the whole world is dogs.
Yeah, they're all
like,
dogs.
That's the point.
Yeah.
And
they're like, yeah, but Pluto's a dog. And I'm like, that doesn't matter.
We don't talk about that.
Like,
there's a line there, and I don't know what it is, but we don't talk about it. Goofy's a dog.
Yeah.
He can talk. I don't know why. Okay.
He just does, all right?
It's fine. Talk to Walt. I don't know what you want.
Go complain to him, right? Anyway, so we see that sitting at the very back are a bunch of the high school kids, and we see Karen, who is Kaylee Cuoco.
Okay.
Nick Carter with his arm around her.
Oh.
And two other high school kids, which I discovered later that their names are Scott and Amber, I think.
Okay.
But they're not super relevant to the story. Anyway, so Nick Carter is like, I think his name was Broly or Brody or something. I don't remember. He's Nick Carter in all my notes.
Yeah.
So,
because it's Nick Carter.
Because it's Nick Carter.
Yeah.
I'm not going to refer to him as anyone but Nick Carter. My first love. Sorry. Until I grew up a little bit and then realized the fine wine that is Kevin.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Yes.
There's a little bit of Aaron Carter in the middle, but,
but
such is childhood.
So Nick Carter is like, this is stupid, let's go. And Karen is like, no, I want to stay. I want to keep listening to it. And he was like, this is ridiculous, let's go. And she's like, no, you can go. Bye. Leave.
Nice.
And he was like, okay, whatever, come on, other two, let's go. And so the other two are like, okay, and they follow after him. And the whole time I'm like supposed to be rooting for Ian, and I'm just like, I like Nick way more. Like, he's just he's kind of a jerk, yeah, but I'm like, but he's not your typical like pushing people into lockers kind of bully. Like, to me it's really weird because as far as I'm aware, he may be on the football team and he may be like kind of one of the cool popular kids. He has no friends. People don't talk to him.
All right.
Like, Anyway.
That's a weird dynamic.
I know, it's a really weird, like,
movie
I don't know
dynamic.
if it's maybe because he was a bully for so long that people don't want to talk to him, and so then he just doesn't, I don't know.
Okay.
Anyway, so she tells him to go and she wants to stay and listen. So Nick Carter leaves with the other one. It's the football player and his girlfriend, right?
Okay.
So they leave. And a couple of things are kind of happening all at the same time and stuff. So, like, this is what's happening with them. So they go to the graveyard, and she is like, oh, what are we doing here? And he's like, come on, you wanted to be scared, right? Tomorrow's Halloween, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, I mean, I guess I do a little and stuff. And he was like, this town just doesn't get it. We live where, like, the most famous ghost story ever written has happened. And I'm like, I don't know if I'd say Sleepy Hollow is the most famous ghost story ever written. It's a good one. It's a good one.
Because there's, like, the Christmas Carol.
Yeah.
That's a ghost story,
Yeah.
technically. There's stuff.
Which, did you know in the Christmas song, like, there'll be scary ghost stories and tales of the glory? Yeah, they're talking about A Christmas Carol when they're talking about tales
Scary
of ghost stories. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah, because that's the Christmas Carol. And I was like, dude, fucking duh. Like, anyway, so he's like, yeah, we live in the town where it's the most famous.
Maybe in America.
Yeah.
You know, American history type thing. I could see that.
I could see that. But, like, he's like, and what do we have? Some junior football player telling us our own story, because Ian's the new kid. Right. And a haunted hayride. And he's like, he's all butthurt that that's all they do, right? And I'm like, dude, but, like, when you think of, like, scary things, you think automatically of Salem, Massachusetts. Like, when I think of Halloween, I immediately think...
That's Halloween Town.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where Halloween originated from. Kind of, I mean, it didn't, but, like, it did.
Yeah.
So, like...
For us.
For
Americans.
Maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm not immediately thinking of Sleepy Hollow, but I was like, dude, I had forgotten about Sleepy Hollow 90% of my life.
I forget that it's a place that exists.
Yeah.
I just think it's like a story.
Yeah.
But
so anyway,
yeah.
They've got a bunch of cute houses there though. Anyway,
it's back east.
East in New York. Anyway, so he's going off about how, like, it's just not fair. Like, this whole town should be terrified, and all it would really take is for one person to die. And
what?
Yeah,
that escalated quickly.
I know, he's like, one real death, and everyone would believe the story. And the girl is like, okay, this is a bunch of bullshit. Okay, and he was like, yeah, well, and she's like, well, I dare you to go touch the tombstone. And you're like, okay, the tombstone. And so I'm thinking he's going to go touch Washington Irving's, however you say it, tombstone. No, there is this, like, it's not like a little mausoleum or anything.
Okay.
It's just this little, like, brick-ish, like, it looks like it's a miniature mausoleum. Okay? Like, teeny tiny, like, enough for, like, one tombstone, right? And a fenced-in gate over the front of it, okay? And so he's like, okay, yeah, I'll go touch it, and, like, goes to go reach through the fence to touch it. I don't know whose tombstone it is. It's just a tombstone that is covered.
The tombstone.
Yeah, and so I don't know if it was, like, Washington Irving's, like, tombstone before the gravekeeper decided to build something around it so people wouldn't touch it. I don't fucking know, because later on you see the tombstone again, and, like, it's just, I don't know what tombstone this is.
Okay.
I think there was a missing, like, scene or something. Maybe because it's a TV movie.
Cranes. Except, is he real?
They say that he was.
Okay.
So, I don't know. But, like, I'm just so confused. I don't know whose tombstone he was supposed to be touching. But anyway, he reaches in to touch it and starts screaming that something's pulling him in. So the two run over and they grab at him. And he's, of course, ha 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 ha, you guys are so stupid. So the girl is like, this is stupid. And she storms away and her boyfriend goes after her, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, so they leave him alone in the graveyard. So back at the house, Ian, our main character, finishes up the story. Again, I don't know whose fucking house this is.
Oh, okay.
Like,
I thought we were in, like, an auditorium when you were, like, the high schoolers in the back.
It's like someone's house on a porch, but, like, it's not a very big house. Like,
But there's, like, a crowd of people?
Not a big crowd. I want to say there's, like, maybe 30 people. Maybe.
But that's a lot of people
at
a house?
Like, just sitting out in front of the house. Like, he's on the porch telling the story.
Is it, like, a historic house, maybe?
Maybe, but they don't...
This is, like, his side gig?
I don't know. They just asked him to do it, and he did it. And so, to me, it feels a lot like High School Musical before High School Musical was a thing. Okay, this came out 2 years before High School Musical.
Nice.
So, he's out there, and he's telling the story. and he's getting right there to the end where Ichabod is running, and the headless he's riding his horse out, and he chances a glance back and sees the headless horseman taking his head and like with all the skin and carnage still attached to it, and throws it at him. And that's the last anyone had ever seen of Ichabod Crane, right? And the whole, like, he does it like right up to the kids who are sitting on the ground in front of him, and they're all like, ooh.
Yeah.
Everyone is like, oh yay, and disperses. You know, everyone kind of just like,
Story's
end
over.
of the story, okay, bye. Well, his mom comes running up and she's like, oh, honey, you did so good. Which, I can't find her on IMDb, but she's super famous. She's in quite a few things. I can't remember her name for the life of me.
She doesn't come up under the cast?
I don't know what her name was in the movie.
Oh, okay.
And I just can't find her on the list. So I don't, she's in a lot of things too, but she's pretty famous. If other people saw her, they'd be like, oh yeah, that's so-and-so. And I'd be like, well, there you go. Because like, I don't know who she is. So she comes up and she's like, oh, honey, you did so great. And he was like, yeah, where's Dad? And she's like, oh, he's, still busy at the house with the move and stuff. And he's like, okay. And she's like, I'll see you at home later. Get home safe, okay? And he's like, all right, okay, bye. And then she leaves him all alone. He's standing there. There's all these chairs still out. He's all alone. No one is there. Okay? I want you to be aware of that.
Okay,
he's all alone.
Okay.
So we flash back to Amber and Scott, and Amber's just kind of storming away, and Scott's like, Amber, come back. Amber. And she finally turns around and she's like, I can't believe that you would let him talk to me like that, and blah, 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 because they argued for a minute and stuff. And like, he was like, oh, come on, babe, it's okay. And he starts getting kind of all cuddly up on her. And they were kind of flirting, but it ended very quickly because he heard a noise in the like shed that just so happens to be a few yards away from them because they're still in the graveyard walking around. But like this shed looks like a mini house. It has a porch. Like, it looks like what you would dream your she shed would look like.
Is that where, like, the gravekeeper guy lives?
Nope, he lives somewhere else.
Okay.
It's just a shed.
Okay.
In the middle of the graveyard.
They just got fancy with their money.
Yeah, but it's like this really old, decrepit-looking shed and stuff, right?
Oh, so they once got fancy.
Yeah.
But is no longer
fancy. But it's got, like, it's little. It's very little, but it has a porch.
That's weird.
And I'm like,
maybe it's a back east thing.
Maybe?
I don't know.
I doubt it. Maybe somebody did live there at some point and then the graveyard expanded and so they just didn't. Anyway, but there's like no tombstones around here. But it's still on the property that would be the graveyard, right? So he hears a noise and he's like, oh, it's probably just Nick Carter trying to scare us. And she's like, hey, whatever. I know it's funny to say, but like...
It's probably just Nick Carter. Silly old Nick Carter.
So he goes up to be like, hey man, like knock it off. I'm trying to get all cuddly with my girlfriend,
Yeah.
And she at this point is looking anywhere but the house, right? Like, or but the shed.
Right.
And so he goes up and we hear this like shink of a sword come out of its sheath. And he's like, haha man, you really got me. And then we hear the sword slice through the air and the squelch of his body hitting the ground. And that's when the girlfriend looks over and she's like, Scott?
Oh my gosh.
Scott? And we don't hear anything, but she goes to walk up towards the house. And that's when she sees his feet like disappearing beyond the door frame as his body's being drug out of. So she like, and is slowly backing up. Trips over I don't know what, but I mean you're walking backwards, so I'll give that to you. And there's leaves everywhere, like they're in the middle of like a wooded graveyard. Yeah, I'll give that to her. She falls backwards,
right? But she was backing up
because she's backing up. Okay, right. I want you all to be aware of this. She's backing up, falls straight forward. Like the next scene, we see her falling onto her hands and knees. Yep. Okay. Like, it cuts to her falling on her hands and knees. And, of course, they had to do it this way because how else would she have noticed the blood on her hands? Which I don't know where the blood came from because he died in over the shed, not
in the grass.
Not in the grass, on the leaves and whatnot. And so I'm like, who else are you killing, Headless Horseman? That, like, there's all this blood all over.
Or who is she killing? Dun, dun, dun.
But she sees the blood on her hands and she's like, oh, what the heck? And then we hears like footsteps up behind her. So she turns around and she sees the most ridiculous CGI pumpkin.
Oh no.
With a guy standing there holding the pumpkin with flames bursting out of its eyes and mouth as he throws it at her and she screams, and that's how the scene ends.
Okay.
Yeah.
They couldn't have done that realistically somehow?
It's like, I mean, for a 2004 TV movie, you'd probably think that looked really good.
Yeah, but like, you can get a prop pumpkin.
Yep.
And just do it with a prop pumpkin.
I know.
Okay.
Yep. Anyway, so she dies. And So the scene changes to Ian in his fancy Mustang, which everyone else calls a piece of crap. And I was like, dude, that is a nice
Is it like an older Mustang?
But nice. like perfect paint job. Like it's a nice car.
Okay.
And everyone else was like, that car's not worth $500. And I'm like,
do you know what a Mustang is?
Yeah, I'm like, anyway. So we see him driving down the road with Karen in the passenger seat. And she's like, thanks for the ride. And I'm like, we don't get to see how any of that happens. No. It just happens, right? No. Anyway, this scene goes on for a little too long of her being like, you were so good at your performance. And thanks for, taking me home. She tells him that he was great. Thanks for the ride. Explains that she's not actually dating Nick Carter, but she's only kind of dating Nick Carter.
Oh, how nice of you to explain that to the new kid.
Yeah. And she's like, he's not exactly my ideal. And then leaves it at that. And I was like, ideal what? Ideal boyfriend? Ideal guy?
Human?
Ideal... Yeah, like what? Ideal what?
So then why are you kind of dating him?
Yeah, because he's the only guy in town she can date, apparently. And I'm
maybe
like,
just be single. It's okay to be single.
Anyway, or if she kind of was like, he thinks he's dating me, I would have been like, okay, I can believe that. Because there's lots of guys out there that are like, that's my girl, And
the girl's like, no.
No, I'm not dating you, but like... You know, but you keep putting your arm around me, so like whatever. Anyway, but she was like, I just want a guy who likes me for more than just my pom-poms, and then like grabs his thigh and squeezes,
What?
And he's like, ho, ho, and then goes, well, maybe I should go grab a cup of coffee sometime. And I was like, what?
Does she work in a coffee shop?
Not that I'm aware of, unless there's a missing scene. Like, I don't know. And so I don't know if it was like him inviting her to get coffee, because it is super fucking late at night. So like, yeah. I mean, high school kids or whatever, they can drink coffee and go to bed, but it's like,
He didn't say maybe we should?
No, he just said maybe I should go get a cup of coffee sometime. So either he said the line wrong, or something's missing. So I really feel like there was a lot of scenes missing from this movie. And
I mean, it was only an hour long, so that makes sense.
Yes. So he looks up and he suddenly sees a man standing in the road. So he slams on his brakes and they both come screeching to a stop. And he's like, oh my gosh, Karen, are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm fine, just a little shooken up. And all of a sudden, Klaus, the gravekeeper, comes slamming up against his driver's side window. And he's like telling him to roll down the window. And so he rolls it down. He's like, what the hell are you doing out here, man? Like, I could have hit you. And he's like, I've been listening, teacher. I've been listening. And he's like, what? What the fuck are you talking about? And Karen's like, Ian, this is the old graveskeeper. He's probably just drunk. Let's go home and stuff. And he's like, I can't just leave him out here. And
you definitely can.
You could, yes.
You're a high schooler.
Yes. And Klaus is like, I had to talk to you, teacher. Get out of the car. Come talk to me. And
no, I wouldn't have rolled down my window.
Right?
First of all,
exactly.
No,
but Ian's a nice kid, and so. Anyway,
that's a shame.
So Karen gets out of the car with him because he's like, I just want to make sure he's okay. And so he gets out of the car with him, and Klaus is like, listen. So they all kind of start listening for half a second. But before they can even hear anything, Nick Carter comes up behind and scares the crap out of Ian and stuff, right? And he's like, oh, what's the matter? Looks like you've seen a ghost. And he says that line a couple of times in the movie. And I'm just like,
we get it.
Who wrote your lines, okay? But he's like, the gravekeeper turns to him and he's like, you've been up in the graveyard, haven't you? And he's like, listen, old man, you don't have to worry about your landscaping. Everything's fine. Like, it's okay. And he's like, you shouldn't be up there. You shouldn't be up there tonight or ever. And stuff. And like,
all right.
Yeah, and Nick Carter's like, hey, whatever, old man. And then the gravekeeper's like, I need to talk to the teacher alone and stuff. And Ian's like, why the fuck do you keep calling me the teacher, right?
The storyteller, buddy.
Right? And I don't know. Anyway, so for some reason decides to go home with him. Like, take him home or something. I don't know.
The gravekeeper?
The gravekeeper.
Ian takes him home.
Yes. And so Karen is like, well, what am I supposed to do? And so Nick Carter's like, I'll take you home. And I guess they're walking because he doesn't have a car or anything. I don't know. So he walks her home.
Is Ian's car only a 2-seater?
No, it's a 4-seater, but he's not taking anyone else with him to the gravekeeper's house. So
I guess that's true.
Nick Carter takes her home.
Okay.
So there's that.
Sure.
Which I'm like, maybe this isn't that big of a town, and maybe it's like you can walk everywhere, but
even like a mile, that takes you a while when you're just walking.
I know. I'm like, our town isn't very big. And it still takes you a while to get anywhere. So he feels bad and he takes the gravekeeper home. And when they get to the gravekeeper's house, the gravekeeper is trying to explain to him that he is actually a descendant of Ichabod Crane. And Ian is like, I can't be a descendant of Ichabod Crane. Ichabod Crane is a story character. And
also,
if anything...
I didn't live here.
Yeah. So, like...
Not that you can't move away, but, like, still.
Yeah, he's like, so I don't know what you're talking about, you know? And Klaus is like, no, you are a descendant of Ichabod Crane, and the Headless Horseman has sensed your family's return, and he is now, like, woken up again, and he's gonna come and kill your family. And Ian is like... No, he's fucking not, because he's a story and stuff. And he's like, no, listen, I can prove that you're the descendant of Ichabod Crane. And he's like, no, you can't. I need to get home. This is ridiculous. He's like, I'm past curfew. I need to go home. And like storms out the door and gets in his car and drives off, right? And so the gravekeeper is like, why won't they just listen to me? You know,
those darn kids.
And, let's see. So he goes and he drives down the road, and I guess there's a couple of roads to the graveyard and stuff, but he gets down one road that takes him to to the end of the graveyard. And there's this big old iron gate that's totally padlocked and locked together. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, which doesn't seem abnormal to me. Like, I feel like you would have, you know, like you're, especially in the middle of the night, you would be locking up your cemetery, right?
Yeah.
But it looks like a really old lock, and it looks like it's been on there for a very long time. Cool. And he's like annoyed, and he's blaring music the whole time. And this to me doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because as he gets out of his car to go see if he can open the gate, but the lock is there, and he's like, man, okay, I guess. And then his music stops playing. Okay. So he kind of like, hello, who's there, kind of a thing, like who's
messing with my
car? When he sees in the distance, someone on a horse riding up towards him.
So the magic of... Okay, sorry, keep going.
You're okay. So, he's riding up towards him, okay? And sees that he's got, like, a pumpkin as a head. And he kind of starts freaking out for a second, like, who the fuck is riding around on a horse in the middle of a cemetery this time of night, you know? And he's kind of like... Oh my gosh, is the story real kind of thing? So he goes to like dive back into his car, but the pumpkin gets thrown at him and it hits his car. And he's like, oh my gosh. And then Nick Carter starts laughing at him because...
Where did Nick Carter get a horse?
I guess it's his horse?
Okay.
I don't know. So anyway, he's got a horse. So, and apparently also has a Headless Horseman costume because he plays the Headless Horseman for the last couple of years during the Haunted Hayride.
Okay.
So he's got his Headless Horseman costume and apparently is like obsessed with the Headless Horseman. Like he loves this story
a lot. So why did he leave the story early?
I don't know.
He's just heard it too many times.
I guess. Or he just didn't like that this kid was doing it. I don't know.
Okay.
I don't fucking know. Anyway.
Like Karen is too enthralled with this.
Yeah.
I'm
leaving and stuff, right? So he's like, did you see a ghost again?
Oh, God.
And I was like, stop writing his lines, whoever you are. This is Nick fucking Carter.
Bad.
This is bad. Like, anyway. He does a pretty good job, though, I feel
That's
like.
good.
For, you know, I mean, I think all of them actually put forth really good effort with the crappy lines that they had.
Yeah.
Like, it's really not the best story. And, like, the worst actor in the whole movie, I think, really was his dad. And which is funny because I think he's a pretty good actor, but like maybe he just didn't care. I think he just
he's like, whatever this movie is.
This is stupid.
Give me my money.
Right. Anyway, so they talk about Karen for half a second and about how he's like, she's mad girl. And he's like, well, I think Karen should make her own decisions.
I heard that she wasn't.
Yeah. So he's like, whatever, I need to leave. So he gets back in his car and drives away. And he makes it home really late to his dad, who I feel like was being pretty reasonable for this, right? He's like, Ian, we're going to talk about this later, but it's really late, so I need you to get to bed. And he's like, what? Come on, Dad. And he's like, no, you broke curfew.
Yeah.
Like, I need you to go to bed right now. We're going to talk about this later. Which I really appreciate that he didn't, like, chew him out right then. He's like, no, it's late. It's a school night. You need to go to bed. I'll punish you tomorrow.
We'll figure this out,
Yeah. Like...
Yeah.
But I'm like, yeah, but you broke curfew. Like,
yeah, if I did that and all my dad said was go to bed, I'd be like, peace.
Yeah, I'd be like,
right.
Thanks, Dad. Like,
yeah.
You know, especially if he's going to have the night to think about it and tomorrow not be as mad as he is. Anyway,
yeah.
But he's like, but I'll see you tomorrow at practice. And Ian's like, ugh. And like storms off to his room, right?
Oh, so he's the football coach?
He's the football coach.
Neil was the worst actor in this movie?
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, I mean, he did okay, but he really just didn't feel like he cared.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
He was supposed to be the aloof dad, right?
Yeah. But he's the football coach and stuff. Anyway.
Right.
So the next day at school, we see Karen talking to another cheerleader. And the other cheerleader, I never got her name. Anyway, she's like, I can't believe you have a thing for the new kid. You should just be dating one of my college guys. Like, I've my boyfriend knows some people.
That's illegal.
Right? And I was like,
Don't do that.
Don't do that. And Karen's like, no, it's fine. I can find my own boyfriends. Thank you. I got it. Like, I don't know. It was just a really stupid conversation to take up time. And so she gets Ian's attention. He walks over to her and she's in her cheerleader outfit. That's how you know she's a cheerleader.
Right.
And
her pom-poms.
Mm-hmm. And so he comes up and he's like, hey. And she's like, hey, so there's a pep rally later. Are you going to come to it? And he's like, I don't think I can. I have to go to practice later and stuff. And she was like, well, walk me to first period and I'll convince you. And I was like, okay.
She's forward.
Right. Well, the funny thing is that they have a couple of flirty moments in the movie that I'm like, okay, that's actually kind of cute. But like they have other times where she's like grabbing his thigh in the car and I was like,
aggressive.
Forward. Okay. And I mean, he was all for it, but like,
it was a little much.
It was a little much.
Someone who's like, I don't have a boyfriend.
Yeah.
I just want a boy who doesn't want me for my pom-poms as I grope you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
It'd be one thing if she like put her hand on his shoulder or something. But
no,
like,
she like full on like, not just like knee. No, it was
thigh.
It was upper thigh.
Woohoo.
So, yep.
Ooh.
So he walks her to her first class and they're kind of talking a little bit. And Nick Carter shows up again. And he's like, hey, have either of you guys seen Scott or Amber? And she was like, no, Amber never called me back after last night. And he goes, well, I need to copy his homework. And
okay.
She was like, he's like, I can't miss this homework again or else, you know, I'm going to fail or I'm going to get failed and coach is going to be so pissed if I can't play football.
Yeah.
And she's like, whatever, I have to go. And so she walks off and he looks at Ian and is like, hey, we've got math class together, don't we? And Ian is like, hey, whatever, here, and gives him his homework. And he's like, just get a few wrong so that she knows it's yours. And I was like,
you're not smart.
You're not smart. And I'm like, anyway.
I mean, if he's been copying off of someone else, that's good.
Yeah.
You know, just be consistent.
Just
really.
Yeah. So then we see a little bit later that Klaus, the gravekeeper, is trying to convince the extremely young, like in his very early 30s, sheriff that they need to cancel, like, good for him, but like that they need to cancel the hayride, right? Because it goes through the graveyard. And he's like, we can't have this right now. The Headless Horseman is returned and like this can't happen. And the sheriff is like, Klaus, you're drunk,
buddy.
Go home. And he's like, I'm not drunk. Why does everyone keep saying I'm drunk? As he keeps like hitting from a flask through like the whole movie. He's just like, no, we have to do it. And he's like, no, we're not going to. So Klaus leaves the sheriff's office and he goes to go find Ian at his school and finds him there and is talking to him for half a second before he pulls out this paper that he has of like Ian's genealogy
his
and
lineage.
Stuff. Yes, and is like, yes, this is Ichabod Crane. And when after like the things with the Headless Horseman, he moved from Sleepy Hollow. I would too.
I thought he died.
The story says he's never seen again, and
so
Klaus
he moved away.
Klaus is insistent that never being seen again is different from dying.
Okay.
Yes. So he had moved away, gotten married, had a son who he changed his name to Cranston instead of Crane.
Okay.
Because that's so much similar.
Bryan Cranston.
Right. And then that son changed his name too to whatever Ian's last name is in the movie. I don't remember. Actually, I can pull it up real quick. Because he just didn't.
He didn't want the name Cranston?
Oh, yeah, no, they changed it to Cranston. Anyway,
so
I don't remember all the names, but he like changed it a couple of times, right? So that it would be now Cranston, so that's different than Crane, right? So, oh no, maybe it was Craneson that was the original name.
Oh,
and
yeah,
I was like, oh yeah, that's so different from Crane.
Yeah.
The Headless Horseman's never gonna find my kids. Like,
yeah.
So he's like, yeah, look, this is who you are now, kind of thing. You're the last in the line until you have your kids, kind of thing, but you're the last of the line right now, right? And Ian's like, no, because he died. And he's like, no, he didn't die. He just was never seen again. And then gives him a book and is like, you need to read this. And he's like, dude, I already know the story and stuff. And he was like, no, you don't know the full story.
You don't know this story.
Yeah, so he gives him the book and is like, you need to read it before tonight. And so Ian's like, fine. And he goes off to the library to read it because Klaus leaves. So Ian is off in the library reading the story. And again, we don't get to know the story. We don't get to know anything about it. I don't know. He's there reading it and we keep seeing him flipping through pages. And all it does is show us pictures. It's not showing us like a close-up of words. It's not showing us anything. It's just him flipping through the pages and a couple of pictures, like the illustrated parts of the book, you know.
So we don't get to know why this story is different?
No.
What?
It's just they're just expecting you to know the story of Sleepy Hollow. Like, if you had
this
never
one
heard
is the whole story,
yeah,
and the story that we know isn't the whole story, give us the whole story.
Yeah, but they don't.
Why?
They just don't. And I'm like, here's my thing. If I didn't even know what Sleepy Hollow was, if I had no idea who the Headless Horseman and Ichabod Crane was,
yeah,
I don't know what this movie would be.
No,
I have no fucking
You'd
clue.
be screwed.
Yeah,
good thing it's the most famous ghost story in history.
Yeah. And
so
I'm
everyone
like,
knows.
Listen, I barely know. Barest of minimum of this information that they're giving us. Anyway, so Karen shows up and is like, hey, you promised to go to the pep rally. And he's like, I didn't promise that. She goes, well, you were about to. And he was like, okay. And he's like, shouldn't you be at the pep rally? And she's like, yeah.
Aren't the football players usually at the pep rally?
Yeah.
Because it's like before the game?
Yeah.
Not practicing on the... Okay.
I don't know. Anyway.
All right.
So she decided to skip the pep rally with him because I guarantee you any cheerleader that actually would do that would get kicked off so fucking fast.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Have you met cheerleader coaches?
Yeah.
Ooh.
No, they are
hard asses.
Oh yeah, they're worse than football coaches. Like there's like they're intense. Anyway, so Karen is like, what are you reading? And I'm gonna ditch with you and just like, what's going on? And he kind of talks a little bit about like, oh yeah, it's just a really interesting story, you know, like it's just, and she's like, wait, I thought you already knew the story. And he goes, you know, I just watched the cartoon a ton of times. And she was like, oh, okay.
Okay.
And so he was like, yeah, but there is something in here I didn't know before. It says that the Headless Horseman can't cross the bridge from the graveyard onto one of their normal roads. Otherwise, he'll burst into flames. Did they explain why? No. Other than I'm sure...
He has to stay on the graveyard.
Yeah. I'm like, it would make sense if they said something that, like, he is only allowed to stay in the graveyard. Or, like many spirits, they can't cross over running water. But they don't say that because I'm weird witchy shit. I know a lot of dumb shit. Yeah, like a lot of spirits and the undead can't cross over moving water.
Okay.
It's just a thing.
So that's the gate that's locked.
No.
No,
there is another gate, and then there's the bridge that people drive over to get in and out.
Oh, like the normal.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so I'm like, which would make a lot of sense that you would leave the bridge open, because if the Headless Horseman can't cross it, why would you lock it?
Oh, true. I guess. Yeah. Okay.
So, but the other gate is locked.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I guess that makes sense. The Graveskeeper is keeping the Headless Horseman here, locked here,
okay.
right?
Yes.
Okay.
But also, sorry.
You're okay.
When I think of cemeteries, my brain automatically goes to Hocus Pocus because it's Halloween, bitches. And that's like hallowed ground that they can't step on. So it's weird that that's like his safe place.
I don't well, see it makes sense to me that like the witches are like they worship dark magic and stuff, and so but were they buried? No, because they were buried under their house.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, if he was just some dude that was buried there and he was like a vengeful spirit that came back, maybe. I don't know. I feel like there's so many ghosts that follow their own fucking rules. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, you know? Like,
just wait till we die.
Yeah.
Just wait.
I'm going to come back and fucking tell you all. I'm going to be like, listen, okay. If I die before you, we're going to have to we're going to have to find a code.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because I guarantee you I would come back and haunt people. Anyway, so he was like, yeah, so he can't cross the bridge because he'll burst into flame. And she's like, oh, okay, that's spooky.
Oh, yeah, sure. Of course.
And she just thinks it's funny. So they're walking down the hallway later, and she's asking him when practice gets done. And he's like, oh, probably around 4-ish. And she's like, oh, that's when cheerleading practice gets done. Do you maybe want to go, like, do something before the haunted hayride? Because apparently she is one of the actors on the haunted hayride. And we don't get to know this until, like, a few minutes later in the conversation. But, like, one of the teachers comes running up to him, and she's like, Ian, oh my gosh, Ian, I need you to help me out here. Scott, the dead kid, hasn't come to pick up his costume, and he is he's the tour guide for the haunted hayride. And
you know the story.
And she's like, yeah, and she's like, please, I really, really, really need your help. Is this run
by the school?
I guess.
Okay.
I don't know.
Unless maybe she like runs it on the side.
Probably. I think that's probably what it is. Yeah, and like a couple of the high school kids get in on it and stuff. But like,
okay.
I don't know. But she's like, please, I really, really, really need you to. And he's like, oh, but there's some movies that I want to watch later. And she's like, can't you tape them? And he's like, yeah, I guess I can. I know. He says VHS later and VCR. No. And I was like, where's the pagers? Where's the scrunchies? Like,
wow.
So she finally convinces him and she's like, okay, here's your costume, here's your script. Thank you very much. And he's like, yeah, okay. And she's like, oh, but the best part is you get to introduce the white spirit, and like points at Karen, and she's like, yeah, me, kind of a thing. And I'm like, okay, great. What's so cool about that? You don't get to spend time with her. You just get to introduce her.
Just like everybody else in the haunted hayride.
And the thing to me, too, is this haunted hayride is a truck pulling a trailer with hay in it, okay? Mm-hmm. And I'm like, all right, they have 2 rounds. That's it. Only 2. And this hayride maybe fits maybe 15 people.
So like you get on, you're lucky.
Yeah.
That's it for the night.
Yeah. And I'm like, anyway. But then because they're standing next to each other and they're 2 kids talking to each other, she goes, oh, and don't forget to invite me to the wedding. And Karen goes, which you should not be saying that to any student. No. Okay. But you as a student should not be saying this to a teacher. And she goes, oh, there's not going to be a wedding. Just a lot of sweaty sex.
What?
Yep.
Why?
And the teacher kind of gives her a baffled look for half a second. And then Karen turns to walk away, but then she goes, ho, 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 and like fans herself at Ian and walks off. And I was like, you are a weird fucking teacher.
Why am I just picturing like Professor Trelawney? Because that's what I'm picturing.
She's really kind of quirky. She's a weird lady. But is like, ho, 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 and like walks away and she's like, oh, kids. Like, which I get it. You're a high school teacher. You know what kids are up to. But like,
I was not that person.
no, I was not that person.
That's weird.
And I was like, why would you ever say that to a teacher?
I'm blushing now. Like, what?
I'm married. You have a kid.
I do. Ugh,
I'm just that
I'm
weird
uncomfortable.
person. Here's a funny story about me, actually, really quick. Whenever anyone tells me that they're pregnant, I immediately, my first thought in my brain is immaculate conception. Because I know how babies are made, and I almost always know who the husband is.
Yeah.
Or
Almost.
so, well, I mean, some of them are like my coworkers, and they're
okay.
like, "Yeah, we're pregnant," and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I don't know
Good
who they
for
are,
you,
right?
yeah.
But I know how babies are made, and I don't need to imagine that of
No.
anybody in the
No.
world. So I'm just like, "Wow, immaculate conception!"
You did it.
Yay! Like,
Great.
and I just have to not think about it because anyway. So later in the locker room, Ian's dad is chewing out the team, telling them that there's a lack of commitment and get out on the football field and you better all be out there in 10 minutes and no goofing around. And I'm like, 10 minutes? As a football coach, I'd be like, you better be out there in the next 2 fucking minutes running laps or I'm going to like cook your asses. Like,
Yeah.
like, but no, he's like, 10 minutes, get out there.
Are they already dressed or do they
Yeah.
need to get dressed?
They're all ready. They're ready to go.
Okay.
They're all in their gear.
Hang out for 10 minutes and buck up.
Yeah.
All right.
Anyways, but he tells Nick Carter to go find Ian because Ian's not here. Where is Ian, right? And apparently Ian decided today that he wanted to join the fencing team. Which,
Okay.
what school that's not a private school
Yeah.
has a fencing team?
have
Did you
no
have a
idea.
fencing team when you went to high school?
Let
Because
us
we
know.
didn't.
We did not have anything of the sort.
No, we had football and you had soccer. And like the soccer girls were fucking insane. Anyway, so no offense.
Like in a good way, kind
yeah.
of. They kicked ass.
They kicked ass. They did. They kicked everyone's ass.
Yep.
Including everyone else at school. Anyway, you don't remember walking past them in the hallway and they would just shove you out of the way?
I mean, it was like. I do.
You know what? No, I fucking don't like her. So that's all it is. Fuck. You called me listfish for a very long time. I don't appreciate that.
That is
Anyway,
true.
it didn't even rhyme.
It wasn't even funny.
It wasn't even funny. It didn't
dumb.
make sense. Anyway, so Nick Carter goes to go find Ian, and Ian is like desperately flinging his rapier at the other guy, right? Mm-hmm. And they're all masked up and everything. And the coach is like, no, do this kind of a thing. And then Ian does this ridiculous move because the other opponent like flings himself at him, yelling and screaming. And he grabs him by the front of his shirt, rolls onto his back, like falls down to the ground, rolls onto his back, and kicks him over the top of him before standing back up. And the coach is like, that is an illegal move, and you would immediately be disqualified from any tournament.
Yeah.
But good instincts. And I was like, no, what? No, don't teach that.
No.
Like, don't.
Like, that's when you say, okay, how about wrestling team?
Yeah,
like,
don't do that. Don't do
no.
this. Like, maybe you should be on football. Like,
Yeah.
But, like, no, he just, like, flings this kid across the room and is like, good instincts. And I'm like, you're a bad coach. So Nick Carter comes in and, like, tells the coach that Ian needs to step out. And so he's like, all right, Ian, get out of here. You know, so Ian goes out. And there's his dad, like, talking to a couple of other football players and then tells them to take off. And then he turns around and starts talking to Ian and is like, Ian, listen, I don't care what you do at home. You can read your comic books. You can watch your scary movies, whatever you want to do at home. But when you're at school and you live under my roof, you're going to be at football practice.
That's stupid.
That's so stupid, right?
also kind of backwards.
Yeah.
That seems weird.
I know.
Okay. Priorities, sir.
Anyway, so he's like, Ian is like, oh, I don't want to be a football player. And I was like, get your head in the game. Like, just...
I want to sing. I want to be in theater.
Which I think is really funny because his dad doesn't care that he does all these theatrical things either. He just is like, will you come to football
But you
practice?
have to do football.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, which is fine. I would be totally okay if he was like, listen, you can do all these other things. I just say that you have to be in football. And as a kid, I would feel like, well, if I can do all these other things, I would feel like that's justified.
Unless you hate playing football. I
guess,
That would
but,
fucking
like,
suck.
but we
Like,
never
just
even
because you're
see
the
him.
coach.
Yeah, but we never even, like, see him playing football. So we don't know if he's good at it or bad at it or if, like,
Yeah. He's just on the team because his dad is the coach.
Yeah, and I'm like, maybe that's your dad's way of wanting to bond with you, and you don't fucking care and stuff. Like, anyway. So his dad is like, well, as long as you live under my roof, you know. And he's like, well, maybe I need to find a new place to live. And he's like, well, you think about that. And he's like, I will. As he walks back into fencing. And, like, his dad is like, harumph, and walks away. Let's see. So then later, Karen is waiting for Ian to get done at his practice. And he's like, oh, hey, what's going on and stuff. And she was like, yeah, blah, 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 nice, like, sword and stuff. And he's like, yeah, well, you know. And she's like, well, at least you don't have to carry pom-poms. And he was like, yeah, well, she's like, you want to trade? And so they trade This is, like, their cute flirting that they do, that she gives him her pom-poms, and he gives her his mask and the sword. So she puts it on, and she's like, on guard and stuff. And then he's like, oh, that's a pretty good stance, actually. And she's like, yeah, now let's see you. And so he's like, okay, Headless Horseman, he's our man. If he can't do it, no one can. Go horsey and stuff. And so they're laughing, and I'm like, that's actually kind of cute. Like, I appreciate that.
In a high school kind of way.
Yeah, like, anyway, so Nick Carter walks up, and he's like, gonna join the cheerleaders now. Which, my uncle was a male cheerleader, and he dated all of the girls. He was like, let me tell you, they're putting their life in your hands most of the time for those stunts. They love you.
Literally, like 1 or 2 days ago, Tony and I were talking about how he was on the football team, but they asked him to be one of the male cheerleaders because he was buff and he can lift shit, right? And he was like, and I could have, except for I was on the football team and I didn't want everyone to assume that I was gay. I have no problem with gay people, but I wasn't gay. And I was like, that's the dumbest stereotype. Like, for, like, male dancers and male cheerleaders and those kind of people, like, you're literally just swarmed with girls.
With girls
all
the whole time. So, like, what?
On buses, on trips, in dressing rooms, like...
You've got constant girls around you, like...
Yeah.
Which,
makes
again,
no sense.
You're lifting them up, you're flipping them through the air, and they're expecting you to catch them with perfect precision every single time.
Yeah.
So they trust you completely.
Yeah.
Like...
Break the stereotypes.
Yeah. So Nick Carter comes up and he's like, oh, gonna join the, cheerleader squad, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, hey, Karen, can I talk to you for a second? And she's like, what? And he's like, hey, listen, at homecoming, what are we gonna do? Kind of a thing. And she was like, will you settle for a maybe? And he was like, maybe? What are you talking about? And she's like, I don't know. I might want to go with someone else.
Then just say no.
I know. And, like, he's like, you're going to go with him? And she's like, I kind of like him. And he's like, but I don't have anyone else to go with. And she's like, well, maybe you should find someone else to go with. And so I was like, this is what's weird to me, is that he's on the football team. I don't think he's the head of the football team.
But still.
But, like, he's on the football team.
And he's Nick fucking Carter.
He's but attractive. Like, yeah, but, like, nobody else wants to go to homecoming with it. Me, I will go to homecoming with you.
Yeah.
Me. Like, I just...
ask that girl who sits behind you in math. She'll go with you.
She'll go with you.
Yeah.
But apparently he has no friends. He has no one to go with him to homecoming. Like, no one likes him?
Yeah, why?
What? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. And maybe it's because he's a weird guy. Sorry, my dogs. So he's like, well, fine, whatever. And goes up to Ian and he's like, so I hear you're going to be the hayride narrator and stuff. And he's like, yeah, I am. And he's like, well, you better not screw it up or I'll kick your ass. And then storms away. And he's like... Thank you. Like,
good luck.
Yeah, thanks, great. And Karen is like, I used to think all he ever cared about was football, but now all I think he cares about is that Headless Horseman costume. And I'm like, okay, like, what's weird. To me, I'm like, what a fucking nerd. Like, is this why he has no friends? Because he's a nerd? Like,
maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, so later Ian goes home and his mom is like, oh, hi, honey, welcome home. And he's like, yeah, so I have to be part of that haunted hayride thing later. And she's like, oh, no way, what is it? And he, like, explains what it is. And she's like, oh, that's so exciting. And he goes, yeah, except I really wanted to watch some movies tonight, so I set up a VCR in the back. Would you mind recording them for me? And she's like, yeah, sure, honey. And he's like, please don't let Dad turn him off. And she's like, I won't let him. And she goes, honey, your dad really does love you, just in his own way. And he's like,
typical.
Cool, whatever. So he leaves to go to the haunted hayride. And this is a very, like, complicated script she gave him, and he memorized the whole damn thing. So straight up.
He's made for this.
And stuff. Anyway, so he's at the haunted hayride, and a bunch of people are getting ready to go. And the best thing is that there's a bunch of little kids that are still kind of have face paint on from their costumes. But they're in, like, jackets and jeans and stuff because it's a little chilly out, right? And stuff. And so they're sitting there, and this one girl climbs up into the hayride, and she has these gigantic fucking paper flowers on the side of her head. But not like poofy flowers, like cut out.
Like flat petal
like
flowers.
Flat petal flowers just on the sides of her head. And I was like, what the fuck
like
are you supposed
Leia bun style?
Yeah. But like her hair's down. So they're just these stuck to her head. And I'm like, what the fuck are you supposed to be? Like, we see one little girl with like clown makeup. We see another little girl with like kitty makeup. And I was like, okay, cool.
Those are obvious.
Yeah. But like, what the fuck are you? Like,
okay.
I don't even know. Anyway.
Weird.
So he gets on, he does this, ladies and gentlemen, blah, blah, blah. It was mostly chicks. And they go through the graveyard and it's so fucking long, but it shows them kind of like slowly driving through the graveyard, and they stop a couple of times for him to tell this story or tell this story. But most of the time it's just actors coming up from behind the tombstones going, ooh, you know, like spooking people. And they get to the part where he's supposed to introduce the white spirit and stuff, right? I think that's what they called her. And that she was a bride killed by her own groom in the woods. And then left there and stuff. And I was like, oh, okay. And he's like, but she's the most beautiful of all spirits. And of course it's Karen.
Yeah.
And which is really funny because she walks up with, do you remember
Oh boy.
Typhoid Mary?
Uh-huh.
Do you remember Typhoid Mary's makeup?
Uh-huh.
It's a little bit better than that.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like full on, like white face.
Like shoved your face in a pie.
Yeah, white. And black lipstick or red, something lipstick. And like really heavy eye makeup. And I was like...
It reminds me of like Mean Girls, and when she's like, "Where's the bride?"
Yeah,
outfit?
it's like that kind of thing. Like it's where it's like you can see the paint and her jaw, like
blend down the neck.
Yes.
People, is it that hard?
No,
it's not.
Apparently. So she comes up and she's like making flirty eyes with him and stuff, and he drives off, and then they get to the end of the hayride where. He's like, oh, we're also missing one spirit. Can you guess who it is? And then Nick Carter shows up in the Headless Horseman, and he like extra scares them, right? Like the kids are screaming and stuff. And so the hayride rides off, and Karen comes up out of nowhere and is just like, what the fuck are you doing, Nick? Like, you scared those kids half to death. And he's like, that's the point of the ride.
It's
like
a haunted hayride.
Yeah, and she was like, well, this is dumb, and like storms away, right? Okay. And I was like, okay. I was thinking that they were doing this like 6 or 7 times, you know, like to get a lot of people through. No, they only do it twice.
That's weird.
Only twice, yep.
No one cares.
No one cares, right? So they get back and they're like getting everybody down, and the mom had shown up and was riding on the first ride because, you know, she's there to support her kid. Cute. And she tells him they did a good job, and he was like, well, where's Dad? And she's like, he wanted to come, but he didn't want to come. So
gotta love that,
right? And stuff. She's like, well, I'm gonna go home and record your movies now. Okay, goodbye, honey, and stuff. And so she goes home to go do that. And Klaus comes up to Ian again, and he's like, Ian, we need to get out. Or he calls him teacher, but he's like, teacher, we need to get out of here. And he's like, what, dude? No, I'm not going anywhere. Which I think is really funny because Ichabod was the teacher. Ian is not. No. So, like, why are you referring to him?
He was a school teacher.
He was a school teacher.
Oh, yeah, I forgot.
So, like, why are you referring to him as a teacher when he's not a teacher?
Yeah.
Ichabod was a teacher.
He's the descendant of the teacher.
So that doesn't make him a teacher.
Yeah, well.
He's a high school student.
Well, student is not the same.
It's
true.
It
doesn't feel right.
But that's what he calls them, and he's trying to get them to cancel the ride. And they call the sheriff over because he was there watching to make sure everything's okay, and is like, can you take him home? I'm pretty sure he's a little drunk. And the sheriff is like, okay, Klaus, time to go home, buddy, and puts him in the seat and drives off. And this is when Mrs. Peacock shows up.
Okay.
And I'm pretty sure, what was the name that you said earlier that he wrote? No, it wasn't Von Winkle. It was Von Etten, or whatever her name was. But I thought she was related to the other person, but she's not. Anyway, so she's like this big fucking deal about them. I don't know why they put her in the movie, other than they were like, she's some crotchety old bitch that's like riding on the ride, make it a good ride. Okay. Like, I don't fucking know. So they get her up in the... so stupid. Anyway, so they're about to like take off when the other cheerleader that Karen was talking to earlier in the day was like, I got a college boyfriend, walks up with her college boyfriend, and she's dressed as a sexy nurse and he's dressed in scrubs, because I'm sure that's all she could get him to wear, because he looked like he did not want to be there. He also was the absolute worst actor of the whole movie. Except I also wanted to protect him at all costs, because everything he was doing was just this like little shy, sheepish face, and I was like, I'm a little baby. But like everything he did, I was like, you poor kid. Anyway, like you're someone's kid, aren't you? Like
you're the writer's kid.
Yeah. They just let you in. So she wanted to go on the haunted hayride, but they said that it was sold out, and sorry, you're going to have to come next year. And so she's like, well, and the boyfriend's like, well, come on, let's just go home and watch a scary movie.
You can't
and
put 2 more people on the hayride?
I guess
you can't do 1 more round on Halloween night?
I don't know. Apparently not. Anyway.
All right.
I don't know. You think you'd want to get as many people as you could get, you know? Like
money.
Because money. But like,
Okay.
That or like, how much are you charging each fucking person to only do this twice?
Yeah.
Like, that's enough to pay for the gas to take the hayride around. Like, what? Which I'm sure all the people volunteered to be part of it. They're not actually like, getting paid, but like, what the fuck?
Money goes somewhere.
Money goes somewhere, yeah. So she convinces her boyfriend to walk the graveyard with her to instead of being on the hayride, let's go do it ourselves, kind of a thing. And I'm going to talk about what happens to them right here because they do a lot of back and forth and stuff, right? So they're walking along the graveyard and she starts getting cold and she's like, oh, this is ridiculous, I'm so cold. And he's like, you're the one who wanted to be out here and
You're
stuff.
literally in a sexy nurse costume.
Yeah, and she was like, oh, well, I just let's go somewhere. And he's like, go where? And they look over and they see the shed.
Oh no.
And she's like, oh, let's go in there. And he was
Ooh,
like,
so
what?
sexy.
And at one point earlier, she was like, why don't you show me the meaning of boneyard? And it was, right? So they go into this decrepit old shed, lay down on the hardwood floor, and start making out. And he starts going a little down south.
I don't care how teenagery you are. Like, that just does not do it for me. No.
Backseat of a car sounds more comfortable than that.
And
like,
that sounds awful.
like, anyway, so he's like, you know, going below the equator, and she's like, oh yeah, don't stop that. Don't stop. And then we hear a sword sheath, kind of, you know.
Yeah.
And my favorite, though, is that, like, so he gets decapitated here, right?
Okay.
You know, because that's what the Headless Horseman does.
Right.
And she's like, I told you not to stop. You know what? Forget it. And she, like, lifts his head up because she was holding him by the head, right? And realizes that it's just his head. Okay. The precision that the Headless Horseman had to have at this point because her legs are there.
Yeah.
So
That's
how
he, anatomy works.
Like, you know,
how would you cut off the entire head
but
without
not
also cutting off her legs?
I know, and it's not like her legs were up or doing anything else. She's not doing some crazy old splits or whatnot. Like, they're there in the way, and like,
yeah, that makes no sense. Unless he like lifted his head to be like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
but then
but no,
she would have felt that,
she
and
would have
his
felt
head
that.
would have dropped in her lap.
Yeah. And
Okay.
it didn't. So I was like, anyway. So she screams and goes running off out of there. Okay.
Yeah.
At the same time, and I'm pretty sure this was supposed to be happening like consecutively, but I don't know if this ghost can fucking teleport, but he doesn't.
It's a ghost. Who cares?
It's a ghost.
Who knows?
Anyway, so the sheriff is driving Klaus down the road when they see a person on a horse in the middle of the road.
Right.
Sheriff, thinking that it is Nick Carter, who wandered away from the group, gets out of his car and he's like, Nick, get back to the, like, go on. I don't remember his name. It's Brody
It's
or
okay.
Brody or something. And he's like, hey, get back to what you
Nick
were
Carter.
doing. Go on, go. And gets decapitated, you know, because it's the Headless Horseman.
Right.
And my favorite part is that Klaus is like, oh no, but like the doors are locked, so I guess the Headless Horseman can't get to him and stuff.
Okay.
Anyway, so but he's like hiding in the back seat and stuff. And anyway, so he doesn't die. But then we go back to the group, and they're kind of riding along, and they get up to the part where they're supposed to be to the Headless Horseman, which I want to know how walking along the road. They met to, it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the story how the two the nurse and her boyfriend, like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't understand.
Okay.
The
layout of
the
the
layout.
graveyard?
Horror movie layouts just don't ever make sense. And I
No.
know I've said it a million times, so they just don't. Anyway, because it's not like they were walking through the trees to get to where they were going. They were walking along the road that the hayride had already gone down. So like.
Okay.
I don't fucking know. Anyway, so they get to the part where the Headless Horseman is supposed to show up, and the nurse comes running up and flings herself at the hayride, and she's like, go! We have to go! Please help me! We have to get out of here! And they're like, everyone on the hayride is like, oh, what is this?
This is cool.
And Ian is like, what the fuck? What is happening, you know?
That's not in the narration.
So he's like, what is going on? And she was like, we have to get out of here. He's going to kill us all. And they're like, who? And she turns and she points and she's like, him. And there's the Headless Horseman on his horse with his sword and the pumpkin head, right? And Ian is like, what the fuck? Because it's a totally different colored horse. Like, his horse is black and Nick Carter's horse is like this gorgeous tan. It's a really pretty horse. And so he jumps down from the hayride and runs up to the truck and is like, go, 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 you need to go, get out of here. And he's like, what, man, what are you talking about? And Stacy, or the nurse cheerleader, turns and runs because they're not going to leave, so she's going to leave, right? Yeah. And she starts running in the Headless Horseman, which is funny because she starts running kind of towards the Headless Horseman. Anyway.
Okay.
Headless Horseman chases her down and chops off her head, right? And
Yeah.
everyone's like, oh!
Good effects.
Wow.
Good effects.
How'd they do that? And they were like, whoa, that's so spooky. And then Nick Carter shows up and he's like, Avast ye! And stuff. And they're like, Avast ye? Anyway.
You're not a pirate.
So he like yanks off the hood that he was wearing and he's like, who's that guy? And they're all like, what the fuck? And Ian's like, go, go, go. And so the guy starts driving the truck off. And the Headless Horseman had, like, taken off already. And so Nick goes up to, like, go check on the girl. And he looks down and he's like, oh, that looks really real. And then the Headless Horseman turns around and starts coming back towards him. And he's like, that is real. And, like, uses his sword to deflect the Headless Horseman's sword, like, right at the last second. And then he takes off on his horse because the Headless Horseman is chasing after him. And I'm like, he's the perfect person to go right now because he's on a horse.
Yeah.
And, like, can go. Right then, as the truck is driving away and the Headless Horseman is chasing off after Nick Carter, Karen runs up to Ian and she's like, what is all this screaming? What is happening? What's going on? And he's like, we gotta go. And he grabs her hand and he starts running off down the road, or like running to like go get her onto the truck and stuff, which is really funny to me because they start talking later about all these people on the hayride that they need to get them out of there. What about the other actors?
Yeah, everyone that's in the graveyard,
they don't
they're
talk
like,
about them.
wow, there's a lot going on. What's happening?
They don't talk about the other actors. They only are concerned about the people on the hayride. And I thought about that like the second time I was watching it. I was like, hang on a second here. Anyway,
they're dead. It's fine.
So Nick Carter, as he's going, gets knocked off his horse because he's looking back the whole time, is like not paying attention to where the horse is running, and he hits into a tree branch that knocks him down. So he gets up and starts running, and he is like sprinting for his life. Good job being a football player.
True.
And like I just keep thinking, there's so many times that I was like, I would be so fucking screwed in a horror movie because
I don't do
like
cardio.
fuck that.
Yep.
I don't run. I would be like, come at me, bro. We're gonna fist fight because like. I might die, but I'm wily. I'll get a few hits in. I'm restraint trained at least, so
There
let's
you
go.
You can take him down.
Anyway, but the whole time, as they're like, this is all happening, I kept hearing the music playing, and I was like, what is this music? It sounds so much like another movie. Like, it does, like, the main part, and then ever so slightly changes it at the end. And I was like, what is this fucking music? And it took me, finally, after, like, the 5th time of playing the song, it's the Pirates of the Caribbean, dun, 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 dun.
Oh.
But then, like, right there at the end, it's slightly different so that it's not the same song. And I was like...
Didn't Pirates come out after that?
I don't remember. Let's find out later. I dropped my phone. So Nick Carter gets up and he's running, and because he knows the story so well, he sprints for the bridge.
Yes.
Right? And he's running and running and running and barely makes it across the bridge and turns around and there's no Headless Horseman. And he's like, yeah! Woo! You gonna come at me now, bitch? Like, just kind of going off, you know? And as he's there, he hears Klaus in the police car down the road calling for help. So he goes to go help him. And my favorite, though, is that the actor is like, help! Oh, help! 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 As he's, like, trying to unlock the door. But because it's a sheriff's car, he can't get out of the back seat.
2003.
Oh. So they just
came out in 2004?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
So, very much Pirates of the Caribbean music. So he's like, help! Oh, help! Oh,
help me, please.
Help, help. And then he can't get the door open and he's like, shit. It's just really funny because he's like, how am I supposed to get out of the car? My favorite, though, is that it didn't have, like, the grate in between the seat that, like, a lot of police car movies have. No, it's just it's just a small town sheriff. Like, he's mostly
like,
taking the
over
drunks
the
to
seat?
yeah, but he doesn't do that.
Okay.
So I don't know. Anyway, so Nick Carter shows up, sees the dead sheriff, and is like, holy shit. But he goes over and he opens the door for Klaus to get out.
Did this happen? So, did the sheriff thing happen in the graveyard?
Yeah, apparently, like, on the graveyard road. So they're all still in this gigantic graveyard area.
But Nick Carter went over the bridge?
Yeah.
And then saw them?
Yeah. Well, I don't know if he went back. I don't know, because it doesn't make a lot of sense. I don't know how he did this, because how could the Headless Horseman kill them if they were on a different road?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
If they were, like, outside.
I don't know.
Okay.
I have no idea.
Okay. Okay.
There's no map. I would love a map, though.
That'd be great.
I don't know. So, this is where I just kind of, like, mushed a lot of notes together, because it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. Anyway, so he gets Klaus out of the car, and Klaus is like, we have to find the teacher, and we have to help him stop the Headless Horseman. And Nick is like, no fucking way am I going to do that. And he's like, listen, son, like, all the old stories, this is what they're talking about. Do you want to be a hero, or do you want to be a coward? And he's like, I want to be a hero. And he's like, okay, then we got to go find the teacher. And he's like, okay. So he goes with him. And as they're running along, for some reason, Ian, like, Karen is insistent on staying with him, right? And they manage to get back to the truck that has the hayride and stuff on it, but they're stopped at the road with the fence, right?
Oh.
And he's like, what are you doing? Get out of here. And he's like, the gate's locked. What am I supposed to do? So Ian moves the truck driver to the side, his own truck, like this guy's truck. Okay,
Yeah.
moves him to the side as Karen jumps in the passenger seat and he rams down the fence. Okay, they literally ram down the fence, drive 2 seconds over it, gets out of the truck, and he's like, okay, now get everyone out of here.
Just keep driving.
Just keep driving. But, like, they don't. So Karen gets out, and she's like, Ian, what is going on? He's like, Karen, I don't have time to explain. Get in the truck. Get out of here. And she's like, I'm not leaving you, Ian. And they fight for way too long. And he's like, fine, let's go. And he tells the truck driver to get everyone out of there. So they get everyone on the haunted hayride out and take off, right? So they go running back into the graveyard. I don't know what he thinks he's going to do.
Yeah.
But, like, he thinks he's going to do something.
I mean, he's the descendant, so...
But he doesn't know what he's going to do.
But yeah.
So, anyway, so they get
It's a
there.
good thing he took fencing.
Yes. But he has no sword. So, like...
Nick Carter has a sword.
He dropped it when he got knocked off the horse, so he got nothing.
So it's there to pick up
somewhere. But that's not the sword he picks up.
Okay,
so,
he picks up a different... Okay, we'll get there.
Anyway,
Sorry.
So, as they're running along, he decides that Karen needs to hide. So they hide her in the shed.
The death shed.
The death shed. But, like, he's like, okay, go in there and I'll come back for you later. And she's like, okay. When moments ago, she was like, I'm not leaving you, Ian.
Yeah. Like, just...
I thought this scene was so superfluous. I really thought I was just going to cut it out completely, but it doesn't make sense how they all match up later. Anyway, so she's in the shed and is hiding, turns around as Ian's like off doing his own thing. He runs into the Headless Horseman and starts booking it, right?
Yeah.
And hides behind Washington Irvin's tombstone. Okay,
yes.
The one with all the thorns and stuff, right? And anyway, as that's going on, as he's running for his life, Karen is freaking out because she turns around and sees a bunch of candles lit and a bunch of people's heads hanging out in the shed.
Oh.
But like more than people have died.
Maybe
So,
it was the other actors.
maybe because I was like, there's a lot more people here than like.
Yeah. He dug up some heads. It's cool.
Yes. Yep. So there's just a bunch of dead heads, and she's freaking out, but can't get back out the door because now apparently it's locked.
Good.
And that's
From the outside.
From the outside, yes.
Right.
And that's when Nick Carter and Klaus show up. And Klaus had, on the way, had found his axe as they were going along. So he's got his axe now.
Good.
And they go and they break down the window so that Karen can climb out the window. And she, like, flings herself at Nick. And she's like, oh, Brody, or whatever your name is. And he's like, it's okay, I've got you.
Oh,
and I was like, you change alliances really fast, Karen.
Yeah.
But I was like, but I mean, I get it. If I saw a bunch of dead heads and whoever helped me out, I would be like, oh my gosh, thank you. Like,
It's true.
yeah.
But
So,
still.
yeah.
Come on.
I mean, probably alive heads would be worse, but like dead heads are pretty bad. Anyway, so
Alive heads are pretty scary.
So Ian is like hiding from the Headless Horseman when he turns and he looks up and there's the Headless Horseman and he goes to like cut his head off. But right then Klaus shows up and swings his axe into him and knocks the Headless Horseman off of his horse. And the horse is just like, sup, man? Like, he's just chilling, like not even anything. Like,
Yeah.
not even... Anyway, so Ian is like, oh my gosh, you just killed that guy.
So how tall do you have to be to have the power to swing an axe at someone on a horse and knock them off?
I don't know.
That's okay.
Yeah, he did a pretty good job. Anyway,
That's good.
And he's an old man too.
Yeah.
An old man. Which, I mean, he wasn't that old in this movie. They definitely tried to make him look like he was a lot older. Because he's a lot older in prison. Or, like, later. Anyway, not the point. So, Ian is like, oh my gosh, you killed him. And he's like, you can't kill what's already dead. Boy, or teacher, let's go.
So what the fuck
So,
do you do?
I just...
You leave him in there and
Well,
you
so-
never go back in?
Right? So, I don't know if it can only be on Halloween that it happens or whatever. Because I just...
Because he didn't do it before.
I don't know.
And he hasn't...
But he was, like, killing people before Halloween, too. So, like...
Maybe it's like the anniversary.
I don't know.
Okay.
Because they don't tell you anything about the
killed
fucking
people
story.
yesterday.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Anyway, so they manage, like, he helps the old man run, and they run towards the bridge, and they barely, narrowly get it over the bridge, right? And they're like, oh, okay, that's it. We did it. It's all... Oh, and, like, Karen runs up to him, and she's like, Ian, oh my gosh. And he's like, it's over. It's all over.
It's not. It's
As they're,
never
like,
over.
kissing, and she's got all his makeup on her face and stuff. But, like, I mean, narrowly, like, escaping death, I would totally make out, too.
Fine.
And so they're, like, kissing, and Nick is, like, pouting and stuff. And Klaus is like, it's not over. We got to go save all those people on the hayride. And Ian's like, don't worry. I already got them out. And he's like, how did you get them out? And he's like, well, we busted down the gate. And he's like, you busted down the gate? The gate was locked for a reason. And he was like, what? He's like, now he can get out of the graveyard and can go anywhere. And he was like, oh,
Shit.
and he's like, yeah, but he's after me, right? So all I have to do is like lure him back over here and we can go relock up the gate, right?
He just likes cutting off people's heads.
And he goes, well, yeah, but he is looking for a Crane to kill. It doesn't matter what Crane, which it would be his dad.
Oh.
So
Ugh.
He's like, we have to get home to your dad kind of a thing. And so we then flash over to the parents. And this is a weird Mandela effect for me because I remember watching this movie a few years ago when I was still living at home with my sister. And I remember distinctly Nick Carter arguing with everybody in the living room.
Okay.
And then the Headless Horseman smashing through the window. It doesn't happen like that, apparently.
Okay.
So
weird.
So that we're back at the house. Okay. And the way they keep filming this is that the doorbell keeps ringing and the dad keeps going up to go answer the door. And only one time is there a group of people coming to trick or treat. But when he goes to go answer, when the group of kids are actually there, the first couple times he's holding the bowls of candy, or the bowl of candy. Okay. The second time when there's actually people there, he goes, honey, we have customers. And so she has to get up. As, like, because he went the first time, and she, like, starts setting the VCR to record the movies.
Yeah.
And then he's like, honey, we've got visitors. So she gets up, and she goes over, and she gives out the candy. And I was like, why didn't you just give out the candy?
You're standing at the door. You're already there.
I don't know. So he uses that opportunity of her giving out the candy to try to change the movie over to watch football. And so she comes back and she gets mad at him and she takes the remote and she puts the movie back on. And he's like, I don't want to watch this. And she was like, you missed both of his things. Let me record his movie.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, this is stupid. And then they have kind of a cute, like, flirty moment and stuff where she was like, don't you remember when we would watch scary movies? And he was like, well, I never actually liked the scary movies. And she's like, then why did we watch them? And he goes,
because of you.
Someone told me that scary movies make girls horny and stuff, like, because they were college kids, you know, and stuff. And she was like, oh, really? And he was like, well, it worked. And she was like, no, and like, you know. Yeah. And I like seeing parents flirt. Like, it's a little awkward, but like, I like seeing couples in love in movies and not just like constantly
the spark
like
is still there.
Yeah. I just hate the movies where it's just like, why are you two still married?
Yeah.
Like,
divorce is a thing.
Yeah. Anyway. So they're kind of flirting. And then they keep hearing this noise. And so he gets up and he was like, these damn trick-or-treaters and stuff. And so he goes outside.
Fucking Halloween.
Yeah. And he goes to like go yell at the kids to get off his porch because they're not ringing the doorbell. They're just making sounds outside of his house. So he thinks that they're like trying to prank him and stuff. But Ian comes running inside. Oh, sorry. Back up a little bit. They decided, Klaus tells them that they have to kill the Headless Horseman. They have to have something from his time period, apparently. So I guess the time of Ichabod Crane, but I don't know when the Headless Horseman actually, like, originated. So, like...
I feel like it's probably, like, the 1800s,
right?
Like,
something?
A couple hundred years ago.
Yeah. So he leads them over into the graveyard again. And it shows them this, like not a tombstone, but, like, a big tomb casket, sarcophagus kind of a thing, right? And he goes, this is my my great-great-great-great, an ancestor of mine, and he was buried with his military garb and his sword. So we need to get his sword, and we can use that to kill the Headless Horseman. And so they push it all open, they open the casket, they take his sword out from the skeleton.
How would you know that?
I don't know.
How would you know that it takes something from his time period to kill him if no one has killed him?
And why does it have to be Ichabod Crane?
Yeah.
Like, just because Ichabod Crane so happened to meet him in a graveyard one time? Like, I'm sure a fuck ton of other people.
He escaped and he didn't die.
I don't know.
And
like,
so
why
he must have his head.
I don't.
Also, Sleepy Hollow came out in 1820.
Oh, okay. But, like, did that mean that's when the Headless Horseman died and became the Headless Horseman? Or did he die, like, a long time before that and just so happened to be haunting the graveyard and, like, people just didn't go in the graveyard until that night?
I don't know.
Anyway. So, sorry, this is going longer than I meant to.
Okay.
Now
it's gonna be a short one.
Yeah. So he's got the sword. We keep talking about other things, but he's got the sword, and he goes back home. Ian shows up at the house while the dad is standing there, and he's like, "Dad, get inside. We have to get inside." And he's like, "What, Ian? What is going on?" And he starts searching the house.
Okay.
I don't know. And they're all like, "Son, what are you doing? Where'd you get a sword? What the fuck are you doing? You're acting crazy!" Like all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
And the dad is standing there in the living room, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Basically. And that's when we hear a growl from the living room window, and he turns, and the Headless Horseman smashes through the window.
Why would it growl?
I don't know. It's like, it just makes these weird, like, sounds.
Oh,
like,
okay.
I don't even... It's
ghostly,
just,
creepy.
Noises, right?
Okay.
Smashes through the window, attacks the dad, pins him against the wall, and goes to, like, stab him. Not cut his head off, but, like, stab him.
Okay.
But Ian manages to cut off his arm in the process of it, right? And because you can't kill him, it's just kind of wounded him. And so the Headless Horseman, like, stumbles back out the window. And they're all like, what the fuck is going on, right? And that's when Klaus and Nick and Karen come running inside. And they're like, oh my gosh, and stuff. And so Ian has a little bit of a heart-to-heart with his dad and is just like, no, we're like descendants of Ichabod Crane and blah, blah, blah. Just kind of like mouth vomits all of this stuff really quick, or word vomits all of this stuff.
Mouth vomit is normal.
Mouth vomit stuff.
So
That's
the real thing.
Explains everything to him. And the dad is like, none of this can be possible. And he's like, Dad, it is. Trust me. And like, so the dad is finally like,
you just had a headless person pin you against the wall and
but
almost
he's got the
stab
pumpkin
you.
head on. So like,
okay.
Yeah, but like,
you had your son cut off someone's arm.
And they didn't bleed.
And you don't think this is serious?
Yeah. And like,
okay.
Anyway, so he's like, finally is like, okay, son, we'll do this. And they go back to the graveyard because that's where apparently it needs to happen.
Right.
And so they go back, and then this all happens really fucking fast in like the last 5 minutes. And
okay.
stuff, right?
Love that.
So they're there, and they're kind of like, come on, horseman, let's go, you know? And the Headless Horseman, of course, shows up, attacks him from the darkness, and knocks him down. There's a little bit of wrestling. And then he's holding the dad down again and is about to cut his head off. And Ian is like, oh, you're going to kill a man while he's down and defenseless and stuff? He's like, what a cheap horseman, blah, blah, blah. You're such a, like, you're a scaredy cat, and yada, yada, like, totally antagonizing him. And he's like, come after me, horseman. And so the Headless Horseman is like, I ain't no bitch. Like, gets up after him. And, like, Ian is running along and gets to the bridge. And it doesn't cross the bridge, but he's right there on the edge of the bridge, right? Still in the graveyard side. And he's like, yeah, you got bested again. Cranes win again. And stuff, like yelling at the Headless Horseman. The Headless Horseman is, of course, right behind him.
Yeah.
And attacks him. And they're wrestling and fighting and like sword clashing a little bit because he's using his fencing skills to try his best to sword fight him. And Klaus manages to reach them before everybody else does because everybody else is far more concerned about the dad being like, got the shit kicked out of him.
Yeah.
And so Klaus shows up and he's like, get him, teacher. That's it, teacher. Stab him in the heart, teacher. Get him, teacher. Like,
that's so weird.
It's so weird. And so he goes to like stab him, but misses his heart, gets him just right in the gut because the Headless Horseman is honestly like 2 heads taller than everybody else. He's a pretty big guy. And so he stabs him and the Headless Horseman like throws him onto the bridge, right? Just like picks him up and throws him like he's nothing, you know, pulls the sword out and throws it down to the ground and kind of just starts like ominously coming towards him. So Klaus grabs the sword really quick, throws the sword at Ian and is like, teacher, the bridge. And so Ian like deflects the Headless Horseman's sword, grabs him by the shirt, does his little backflip, throws him onto the like does his fucking ridiculous move that this guy is like so much. I get it, use your opponent's momentum against them, but like
that's a big guy.
That's a big fucking
and
guy.
A high school student.
Yeah. I mean, he had to crit on that. Just saying,
yes.
Like
he rolled a nat 20.
Yeah, just yes. Anyway, so they throw him onto the bridge, and he bursts into flames, screaming and roaring and yada yada, and is defeated. Okay. And they're all like, yeah, we did it. And
okay.
But yeah, I know. I'm like, Ian did it. Shut up. So all of the rest of their, like, his family comes running up. His dad and his mom and Nick and Karen come running up. And his dad kind of gives him one of those, like,
oh, son.
Proud of you moments. And he goes over and hugs him. And then the mom runs up and hugs them both. And they're just kind of hugging and stuff. And then they're like, okay, let's get you home. Because apparently he's, like, super hurt now.
Yeah.
Like, and so she starts walking him home. And Karen runs up to Ian. And she's like, Ian, you did it. And they kiss. And Nick is kind of like,
I guess,
you know. And Klaus comes over to him and he goes, don't worry, son. There's better things in the world than knowing the warmth of a woman's flesh. And he's like, right, wait up for me. And he goes off after his
gotta
coach.
go.
And he's like, guys, wait up. And he goes off after them, right? But he's like, you're a hero, son. And like, anyway, I'm like, he didn't do much other than be there, but like you were support, and I'm cool with that. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm there for you. Without him, they probably might not have been able to get like the tombstone or the lid of the sarcophagus off because that thing was fucking heavy. It took all 4 of them. So like,
wow.
Anyway, so they're all really happy and stuff, and they're all leaving, and Klaus comes up to Ian and Karen, and he's like, now, are you two thinking of making babies and stuff? And Ian's like, I don't know, I'm thinking homecoming first. And he's like, well, if you do decide to, like, be making babies, I hope you take her last name, because I don't want to deal with this anymore. Like, and I was like, but
you're a descendant.
Yeah, you're still, like,
a name change doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, and I was like,
as shown in this movie.
And also, you're expecting the Headless Horseman to come back.
Yeah.
Because you just said I don't want to have to deal with this again.
Yeah.
So what you should have said is like, oh, if you two decide to get married and if this could possibly happen again, move the fuck away and don't come back.
Yeah.
Because clearly you moving here is what reignited the Heartless Horseman.
Yeah.
So like, don't live
leave,
here.
please.
Go away.
Yeah.
Fuck off. Like, so they're like, yeah. And then they leave, right? And he's just kind of like,
Kids. Uh-huh.
me and my graveyard.
Job well done.
And then here's a growly-ish sound behind him.
No.
The end!
No.
Yep. Which, I mean, I get it. He's a ghost, but like...
But he burst into flame. Mm-hmm. And the legend says, or it says somewhere.
Yeah.
We don't know the legend.
Not because they won't tell it to us.
We don't know the story.
So,
Okay.
yep. So there's my Halloween movie for you.
Yay! Spooky spook! Halloween time!
This has like a 4.3 rating or something. 4.5 rating on IMDb.
What do you think about that?
I think that's generous. I think that's...
Woof.
like the acting, everyone did I mean, I feel like I say that a lot, that the actors did the best that they could with what they were given, kind of a thing, but I really felt like they did the best that they could with what they were given. This movie just really banked on you knowing all of this other stuff already.
If they had given us more pieces, like make the movie 20 minutes longer, and keep important stuff in there. Like, why? Yeah. Okay. I mean, that sounds like the kind of stupid ass movie you would put on Halloween when you want to have like a spooky time but not a scary time, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
But see, the funny thing is that the moment when he like crashed through the living room window, this back to a story of when I was younger. This was one of the years where Halloween was on a Sunday. Okay. And for some reason, I guess the whole city decided that they were going to do trick-or-treating on Monday after instead of Sunday, because we live in Utah.
Yes.
And so they were going to do it on Monday, right?
Instead of Saturday.
Instead of Saturday. They did it on Monday.
Dumb.
I don't know.
Okay.
So they did it that way. Anyway, so I remember distinctly sitting in the living room with my sister Danielle. Okay. We're watching this movie. Okay. And we, you know, because you lived in the house when we were roommates, the back door, there's the back door and then there's the swinging, or the
screen door.
The screen door, okay?
Yeah.
Well, the screen door never, like, would fully latch, so we'd have to keep it locked, and, like, a good, like, gust of wind would suck that thing open if it wasn't locked.
Very squeaky.
Yeah. And when I was living there with my family, we had our TV against one wall and this, like, curio cabinet on either side of the TVs, and the curio cabinets had glass, right? And all of this just so happens to happen all at the exact same perfect storm moment, okay? We're watching the movie, okay?
Is your back to the windows?
Yes, our back is to the window, or to our big main window, so we can see the TV, and we can see the door in the reflection of the curio cabinet, okay? Yeah. So the wind sucks open the door of of our like screen door, and we can see its reflection in the glass swinging open and banging, right? Yeah. Okay, that happens. The Headless Horseman smashes through the window of the movie and stuff, attacking right then. Okay, and this isn't that scary of a movie. It's really not. Yeah. Smashes through the window. The doorbell rings, and our dog starts freaking out. So all of this happens at the exact same time.
And you're what, like 13 at this point this year?
And my sister Danielle and I just start because all of this is happening at the same time, and like scared the shit out of us, and we were like, So we get up and we go to the door to see who's there, and we open the door to this family.
Oh no.
A ladybug and a giraffe.
Oh.
Saying trick or treat. And we didn't have any candy yet. So we were like, shit, what do we do? But then Danielle remembered that she had gotten asked out to a dance like a couple of weeks before, and this kid gave her bags of candy.
Nice.
And so we ran over and we like grabbed some of the candy from that and like gave it to him, and because there's no way she wanted to eat all that candy and stuff. So we gave it to them, and they're like, okay, thanks, bye. And so we kept the candy out in case we had other trick-or-treaters. That was the only trick-or-treaters we had.
Sad.
And I was like, but I'm like, I guess they were just the family that didn't realize that you weren't trick-or-treating on Sunday.
Oh,
so
right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we just went and sat back down, and we were like, okay. Like,
jeez.
So all of that was just like the perfect moment, and DC was just like, I was at the door, and like, yep.
That's awesome.
It was ridiculous. Anyway, so there's my story.
Is it like a fun ride? Is it worth a watch?
I would rather go on the hayride of the movie, honestly.
Okay.
With the possible chance of dying from the horseman.
And the possible chance of Nick Carter.
I would be like, leave me here, please, thank you.
I'm good.
Very much so.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay, well, Cool.
Yep.
That
But
was
you can
fun.
find it on YouTube. Not
If
the
you
best
want
quality,
to.
but it's on YouTube.
Check it out, if only for the Nick Carter. You
Yeah.
know, whatever. Whatever tickles your fancy.
Yeah. I mean, he did have like this ridiculously like longish hair. It was, early 2000s hair.
Yeah, we
So.
don't talk about that time, even though apparently it's coming back. But
The
Gen Z.
Y2K fashion. We don't even know Y2K fashion.
I know, they're
cannot
picking
wait.
all the cute things.
I know. I'm like, what? No, you
No.
need to have the belts that do
Where's
nothing.
the inflatable furniture?
Yep.
First of all.
First of all. Second
Where's
of
the
all.
body glitter?
Yep. I cannot wait for winter to come so that all of them can find out what it's going to be like when their pants are soaked all the way up to their ankles. So,
Your mom jeans aren't going to be so great then.
yep.
But, whatever. We're just crotchety old millennials. But
Yep.
anyway,
Thanks for listening. No,
yes.
Not watching.
Check out our other
Oh,
episodes.
it's
We're on YouTube and Spotify
Mm-hmm.
and Stitcher and Google and Apple Podcasts. And send us an email at bmoviebashpodcast@gmail.com if you have any requests or comments. Follow us and like us and subscribe and do all the lovely things because we love you so much.
We love you so much.
Have a happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween.
Have a great time.
Have a great time.